Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. So, I don't think I really need to explain why the MCU is in a bad spot right now. There's been tons of projects that have been mid at best, and with no real sense of direction, I and many others really don't care about the MCU anymore.
It's just been miss after miss after miss.
Now, that's not to say every movie has been complete trash. You know, every once in a while you get a great movie like No Way Home or Deadpool and Wolverine. But with the overabundance of misses, as of right now, Daredevil Born Again is the last MCU project I'm interested in. And that alone won't save this franchise. Out of every big franchise right now, I'd argue the MCU is the toughest one to revive. I feel like people are giving a chance to DC's reboot because, their last universe sucked. Hopefully there is a consistent level of quality and care moving forward with DC. With the MCU, however, I don't think people will be so forgiving of a reboot. Because we've all gotten attached to these versions of the characters. I doubt people want to see a new version of the Avengers. I mean, we've already seen the lukewarm response to Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans returning for Secret Wars. I'm skeptical about much interest in the X-Men because, despite their quality, we've already seen these characters in the Fox universe. I'm not sure people will care to see a new version of them. Most of the people I know are kind of done with superheroes, reboots, and new iterations in general. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the term superhero fatigue because I think people are more so tired of the amount of bad projects being put out, not necessarily superheroes themselves. It seems like the executives at Marvel are shifting the way they approach projects, but unfortunately it's gone to a point where people are beginning to associate superhero movies with poor quality. So, is there any way to fix the MCU?
I don't know.
Look, I know people will just say,
let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
But as someone who was in love with the MCU growing up, I want to save this franchise, even if it's only for a short time. So, the two biggest problems with the MCU are the sheer amount of content being made and the lack of direction the universe has. The MCU also has to stay in the present day. As a long-term plan, you can't really move the MCU too far in the future or past because all of Marvel's biggest characters live in the present day. Maybe I'll change my mind once Fantastic Four releases, but even I'm not interested in seeing that. In this phase I'll introduce, there'll be an endpoint to an overall story, and there won't be that many projects released. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about does hinge on what happens in the next few Marvel projects. Specifically, what's going to happen in the end of Phase 5. But to be honest, I can't really see them derailing things too much, so, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Here is my game plan to save the MCU. Okay, so obviously Secret Wars is going to happen. There's no way around it. As much as I don't care about the multiverse saga, let's just wrap this whole storyline up and move on. What happens afterwards? I'd like to see a focus on more street level heroes. Let's get away from all the cosmic stuff. The next phase of the MCU would be titled the Devil's Reign arc. The thematic focus of the phase will be to show what happens to the world without the Avengers. Not only would this be an in-universe commentary, but one that describes our own world. Things haven't felt the same since Avengers Endgame. For many different reasons, the world seems like it's become a more chaotic and pessimistic place. I'd like to touch on that feeling in these films. The first project I'd greenlight will be a Spiderman movie. This is where we get to our first problem. As of right now, there is an untitled Spider-Man movie slated for release between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. You know what that means. More multiverse.
Are you fucking kidding me?
The ending of the movie does somewhat determine what can happen in my Spider-Man movie, but I'm praying it doesn't derail things too much. Or who knows, maybe the stuff I'll mention here is what they'll be doing with that movie. So what exactly is my Spider-Man pitch? It would be titled Spider-Man Devil's Reign. This would finally introduce Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin to the big screen. As we'll see in Daredevil Born Again, Wilson Fisk has risen to be the mayor of New York. Much like the comics, he will have a strict anti-vigilante policy given his hatred for Daredevil. This of course will lead him to confront Spider-Man, who is the city's most popular hero. Here, Daredevil and Spider-Man will officially team up to take down Kingpin. Now, I don't want to make it feel like you had to watch the Disney Plus shows to enjoy this movie or the rest in this phase. Kingpin will act as the main villain for the entire arc. even though, no, you won't see him in every project. I want to focus on each character's relationship with his regime and why they want to dethrone him. There won't be too much of an emphasis on their past projects, specifically the Disney Plus stuff. Spider-Man Devil's Reign will focus on Spider-Man and Daredevil's relationship, with Kingpin's rise representing Peter's life after No Way Home. I also think it'd be pretty crazy if Spider-Man ended up going to jail, with the movie ending with Daredevil more determined than ever to dethrone Kingpin. The film will have a sort of Empire Strikes Back ending where Kingpin has reached the height of his power. Specifically, he will use his masterful manipulation to begin creating the Dark Avengers. Ideally, we'd see an after-credits scene where he approaches Valentina Allegra to join him. I don't want Kingpin to overcome his stay, so he'll only be a main character in this movie and the last of the phase. The next movie would be a team-up between Miss Marvel and Kate Bishop. I think this movie has the lowest chance of being received well, but I do want these characters to be in the big crossover event. The movie follows the post-credits scene of The Marvels where Miss Marvel approaches Kate Bishop. The plot would focus on the challenges of living under Kingpin's reign. I think Damage Control would be a great villain for this. I know we kind of already saw them in the Miss Marvel show, but I think having them here could lead to some really interesting conversations about how the US treats its citizens, with Miss Marvel being more of a pessimist and Kate Bishop being more of an optimist. Of course, the challenge with this movie is that its past related projects were A, mostly on Disney Plus, and B, not viewed by many people. Realistically, I think we only need a few short scenes exploring who these characters are. Maybe we get a scene in the beginning of the movie where Kate Bishop is training with Hawkeye, and maybe we can have another scene of Miss Marvel kind of giving a one-off line about her adventures with Captain Marvel. The goal with this movie would be to hopefully make general audiences connect with the younger roster of characters. Because as of right now, no one really cares about any of the characters in the MCU. Anyways, the after credits would be Kate Bishop talking to Hawkeye asking for help. The next movie would be a Thunderbolts sequel. Now, obviously, parts of this would be contingent on what happens in the first movie coming out later this year. But for now, I'm assuming the movie kind of just ends with the Thunderbolts defeating Sentry and moving on. The main conflict from this movie arises from Valentina Allegra getting orders from Kingpin for the detention of Captain America. Given Fisk's anti-vigilante policy, he wants to target the heroes with the most recognition. Of course, this leads to a dispute between the Thunderbolts on whether or not this is the right thing to do. Bucky and David Harbour's character could side with Falcon, while everyone else stays with Valentina. Yelena would essentially act as the main character. She'd be trying to keep the group together, going back and forth on whether to follow orders or what she feels is right. But by the end of the movie, she will side against Captain America. Kingpin would have a small cameo, maybe a single scene where he talks to Valentina Allegra, officially establishing the Dark Avengers. Now, I do think Bucky should die in this movie.
What the fuck is this?
Okay. I know people are going to go after me for that, but hear me out. Unfortunately, Bucky's character is pretty directionless now. Throughout the Infinity Saga, his whole thing was being Steve Rogers' best friend. Obviously, he had his whole Winter Soldier arc, but that was mostly used to propel Steve's journey, not necessarily Bucky's. Personally, I think he should have been given the mantle of Captain America. He had a much closer relationship with Steve, and I think him gaining the mantle would have been a great symbol for his redemption journey. If they really wanted Falcon to be Captain America, they seriously needed to put more legwork into building that up before Endgame. As of right now, I can't really see anything being done with Bucky. That is why I'm going to give him a ceremonial death in this movie. He dies protecting the legacy of Captain America, also pinning the final straw on the Thunderbolts' turn to the dark side. Given Kingpin's reign, I'm not sure how Bucky's funeral would go, but I wanted to have the same amount of reverence Iron Man's funeral had. I think finishing Bucky's arc this way would really give some actual meaning for his character. For the after credits scene, we just see Sam on the run, finding the Hulk and asking for his help against Kingpin and the Thunderbolts. Before the finale, I think we should have another season of Daredevil. Let's really peer into his mind during this dark time. The thematic focus would be to see how Daredevil copes with the ending to Spider-Man Devil's Reign. Obviously, Kingpin's policies would still be in place, but we wouldn't see him this season. The main conflict would be with Bullseye. Let's give him the spotlight as the main villain. I think we could potentially see Matt free Spider-Man using the law, but realistically, I'd like for that to be the opener for the final movie. Probably the most important story beat is for Daredevil to team up with Echo to stop whatever shenanigans Bullseye is up to. He wouldn't necessarily be defeated in a traditional sense, but it would be a symbolic win for Daredevil. The people see how bad life has become in New York with over-policing and corporations scrounging their every last dollar. Seeing Daredevil gives them hope and makes them realize we need heroes to guide us. Again, it's not like Bullseye is going to be thrown in jail or he's going to lose a fist fight or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, what Daredevil will be winning, like what the conflict will be. But all in all, this would give Daredevil his final push to defeat Kingpin in the final movie. This, of course, would be titled Dark Avengers. Finally, this is the culmination of everything that started in 2015 with Daredevil Season 1. After Thanos' attack on the compound, the Avengers have officially re-established. Here's the lineup for both sides. Starting with the Dark Avengers, we have Bullseye, Yelena Romanoff, US Agent, Red Guardian, Scorpion, let's finally address that homecoming post-credit scene, Ghost, Taskmaster, and Red Hulk, with Kingpin being the leader. For the Avengers, we have Spider-Man, Daredevil, Miss Marvel, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, The Punisher, Echo, Luke Cage, Captain America, and the Hulk. I think either Cap or Hawkeye would work as the de facto leaders. This isn't your typical Avengers lineup, I recognize that, but these are the characters who I think need to be involved with this finale. Especially because, as of this year, it's been 10 years worth of Kingpin stories. This will be the last time we see Kingpin in any major role. The Avengers will put him in prison, and this time, he'll stay there. I also think this should be the last hurrah for Clinton Barton's Hawkeye. Not that he should die or anything, but I want him to live the rest of his life in retirement. Maybe he acts as an advisory role in the future, but that's about it. The film will conclude with Luke Cage taking over as mayor of New York, much like he did in the comics. He won't officially join the Avengers, but obviously he's an ally. In terms of official members at the end of the film, we'll have Spider-Man, Captain Falcon, the Hulk, Miss Marvel, Kate Bishop, and perhaps we can see Ant-Man or his daughter recruited at the end of the movie. I think Daredevil, Echo, and Punisher work better as solo vigilantes, so they won't be officially integrated into the team. Now, the question is, what happens after this? And to be honest, I think this should be the spiritual end of the MCU. I'm tired of all these Marvel projects seeming like a content mill. Since Endgame, it just seems like we've gone project after project just for the sake of releasing stuff, not because there's actual stories to tell. I think with this general outline, we can finish the MCU on a high note with a definitive end to the story. This phase acts as a legacy piece that honors the characters of the Infinity Saga while giving hope for the in-universe future of the world. Of course, we can still have projects after this. I think at the very least we need another season of Daredevil, and we definitely need another season of Moon Knight. You can still have a solo movie like Spider-Man every once in a while. But I seriously think for the health and legacy of this franchise, we need to end it on a high note. And for me personally, I just don't see Secret Wars being able to do that. So, as a recap, the projects in Phase 7 will be Spider-Man Devil's Reign, the Miss Marvel and Kate Bishop crossover, Thunderbolts 2, Daredevil Season 5, and capping it off with Dark Avengers. I think there's a case to be made that we should have another season of Luke Cage in there, but I'm not exactly sure what it would be about. And to be honest, I don't think he needs much development by the time we get to Dark Avengers. If something like super crazy happens in the next few months, like killing off Kingpin and Born Again, then maybe I'll revisit this topic. But let me know your thoughts on all this. What do you think of this phase? Or do you have your own ideas on how to save the MCU? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.